Here, have no fear. Joining in 1, 2 seconds. There he is. Yes. How are you, sir? You have to adjust your microphone. So you see where the microphone is there. There's a little arrow. Click that and you'll see the options.
All right. Can you hear me now?
I can see you. I can hear you. It's all good.
Wonderful. Getting used to the new exciting platform.
Well said. You'd swear we were paid. I like that. Exciting. And exciting. So yesterday we had Ari on. Today we've got I call you Mr. Google, by the way. You just have him right beside you. I got my instant Google search right here. So I would like for it to be just us,
Yep.
if that's okay. The only other person I'd probably be open to is maybe Ari. But it's been a while since you and I talked, so a lot to go through. I'd also like, if you can, and I will too, we're at 12:08 right now. There's
Yep.
no timer in this.
I have a
Like,
clock right underneath my monitor for
so do
just
I.
such cases.
The weather here is brutal today. It's freezing, it's cold. I've got some really fresh air going through the window here. So, your call, my call. We'll see how we're feeling at half an hour. Um, we'll end it if we're not feeling the flow. If we feel like we might need a break. He's adjusting his camera now. Okay. Oh, did he drop? Oh, something happened there. Okay, we'll add him again. Back in 3, 2, 1.
Sorry about that. All I could see was your profile picture because my
Yeah,
ad blocker and other settings
yeah.
on the new URL, it wasn't enabled. So when I
You want to
clicked it
see me?
over, it
You want to see?
refreshed.
You want to see
I want
the full crazy?
I want to see, beauty. Had you been in ancient times, they would have made statues out of you.
Yes, but it goes to show how important it is to be able to see what someone's saying and see their body cues. I recently had a lot of drama about an idea that I had where I want everyone who comes up to be on camera
Yes.
because I feel like I'm at a disadvantage if I can't see what they're doing.
Yep, absolutely. Well, it's
Yes.
so much easier. They say 60 to 80% of communication is nonverbal.
Mm-hmm.
And that's been one of the hardest things about the pandemic and switching to this virtual world is
Yes.
we've lost a lot of that communication and it's hard to make it up with just speech and tone.
I want people to know that his background is real. And if you
Yes.
notice, there's like a gold, I don't know what it is, but I always feel like I'm being hypnotized when I see it.
It's the good luck cat.
You will
It
fall
wards
into a deep,
protection.
you will fall into a deep, deep sleep. So can I just ask you questions and you can roll? Is that cool?
Let's roll with it.
All right. So I don't know how much you know about it, but there's this new variant they're talking about.
Yeah, the new one from South Africa that just came out in the last week or two, or they
Hmm.
just I finished sequencing it.
So I've heard rumors that the vaccine will be no good for this. What do you
They
think?
are worried that they're worried about the vaccine's effectiveness. They don't have any data on it yet, and it also depends. There's a
Right.
lot of different vaccines from different countries.
Right.
There's different effectiveness, so it's going to take a while to figure out which vaccines have which protection. The key is any vaccine helps your body recognize it and you'll fight it off faster and sooner with less severe symptoms. The better the match, the less sick you get. It doesn't mean like I've got this force field that prevents us from getting sick. It just means we'll get over it very quickly and won't end up in a hospital. Hopefully.
What I've noticed now is people really do believe they have a force field around them because we're
Yes.
watching sporting events. Nobody has a mask on. They're all in there like sardines in a can and
Yep.
not wearing, spraying all kinds of craziness everywhere.
Yeah. There seem to be a lot of people who either are accepting the risk
Hmm.
or have decided they're just not going, they're just, they're worn out and they're not going to follow any safety protocols anymore, which I understand, but it's also a little frustrating.
Do you think within the next 5 years that we'll get a variant that could attack, say, my age between 60 and 80 years old and take out 20%?
That is so a pandemic is always a real threat,
Hmm.
whether it'll be a COVID variant or something else. Like
Right.
we almost had an Ebola outbreak and
Right.
they were able to contain it.
Yeah.
That would have been horrific. You know, Yellowstone could explode. We could get hit by a comet. All these things exist. So trying to place a bet on which one is going to take out humanity,
Yeah.
I think a pandemic is probably one of the most realistic ways that we could seriously impact populations. And there's no way to predict it other than it will happen at some point.
Here's the thing that scares me the most is every day there seems to be another shit pile. And let me explain what I mean by that. In, BC, first they had the flooding, extreme flooding. I don't know if you've
Yep.
watched it. We've had
Yeah, I have.
roads collapse. So then they were rationing gas.
Yep.
They were rationing groceries. They were dictating how many hours you could shop.
Yep.
They were dictating how many gallons of gas you could have.
Yes.
And the problem is the water is still there, and guess what? It's raining still.
Yep.
So they predicted some 5, 6 years ago that they didn't have adequate. It reminds me so much of New Orleans is sinking, and I don't want to swim by the hip.
Yeah. Well, and weather events have always been problematic. I remember growing up that every couple years there were severe floods in the Midwest and
Yes.
different river systems. We've controlled a lot of those, but because humanity has expanded,
Hmm.
now disasters are impacting more people and they're more
Yes.
severe. So whether or not even the disasters are more severe, there's more people in the way, which makes them more of a disaster to us.
Right. I want you to know that if the connection stops all of a sudden, I'm not mad at you. We have extremely high winds here,
Ah,
and I don't know if you can hear the wind. I have the window open like this much to get fresh air, and the window's doing this.
wow. No,
It's
I can't
so
hear it.
good. Thank God. My wife is being loud on the phone in the back. So,
I have an air filter behind me and it kind of acts as a mini white noise, so
mhm.
I hear it and always worry that people are picking up that light hum in the background.
So what I've been doing, and there's just so much to talk about, but Happs has changed dramatically. As you can see,
Yes.
you can only have 4 guests now, which means three, because there's the host. You can't get rid of yourself. So prior, you could have 8.
Right.
There is no landscape anymore. There's just portrait. There's no more free coins for duration of time. There's no broadcast of the week. Um, a lot of people say that the platform has pretty much abandoned our sector and gone towards the TikTok, Instagram groove. How far have we come, my friend? You and I.
Well, when you think about the platform originally was a way for independent news broadcasters,
Yes.
investigative journalists to provide hyper localized news updates and more timely information. And it was, you know, for us in North America, it's like, oh, okay, that's kind of fun. Throughout the
Yeah.
rest of the world, it's, a vital news service. They
Yes.
managed to take that and then provide a platform where, regardless of what you wanted to discuss or what you wanted to share, it was a great forum. Now shifting towards where, to the type of media, to the type of content that people want to share, yes, it will leave some people behind that loved having just informal discussions, but in some ways, you need to go where your audience is.
Right.
That's how businesses operate.
Mhm.
It's great if you can still have some of the old content, some of the things that made Happs such a great platform, but you're always going to be evolving, so you're going to have to adapt. And if this doesn't fit you, then there's lots of other platforms that may be better suited if this one's no longer that high match to what you want to do.
See, and I love your logic. So for you, and you and I have been through this together. I've been on the
Yes.
journey a little longer and more frequently, but you definitely have been part of the history, the beginning of this. Our old videos still get played daily. I know because I get statistical stuff on it. Some of those are well over 1,000 now. There's videos that I made with Randy W. Horton that the
Yep.
day of we got 500 views and now they're over 5,000. So that catalog stuff that we had, to me it was very bright men together in the lunchroom talking over the water cooler about things maybe necessarily they shouldn't be talking about ever. But we had fun.
Occasionally, but I think you're absolutely right. And there's been many times where you say, "Wow, wouldn't you love to be in the back seat of a car listening to these two people talking in the front seat just to be able to
Yes.
hear the conversation?" And those are great because you never know what you're going to learn, see different perspectives. And a lot of the conversations that you hosted and the people you drew together really pulled out some just fascinating aspects of it. And it's
Yes.
nice to see that people are not only enjoying that real time, but able to go back and listen to it almost like a podcast where it's edutainment. You're learning, you're getting a new perspective, but it's fun, it's lighthearted, it's enjoyable.
Yes. Now, in the future, we're going to do a broadcast maybe once a month for business. We're going to get now. I kind of like it's only four because if
Right.
you get too many, it does people get left out,
Right.
and that's a lot of testosterone in one room, right? A lot of ego, a lot of brain power. I think you guys could easily fire up New York for a few seconds. It would be easy. Blazin, how are you, sir? Good to see you. Thank you, Jeremy, for being here as well. But when I make these now, it's funny, I've changed so much because before I used to be worried about the views during it. I don't even give two poops now. To me, it's
Right.
more about the quality of the content, the ease at which we do it. Like, it could be 400, it could be 4 right now. I know that in the next year or two, people will watch it. And I think I'm more focused on now, what am I going to ask you? And is it potent?
Right.
Right? That's how
Right.
I've grown. We're not
Well,
railroading over each other, which we used to do in the earlier ones. And I don't mean so much you, I mean me. And
well, it's a different way of having a conversation, and so it takes a little bit of refinement and an idea. If you've got two people taking the conversation two different directions, one of them's going to win.
well, I think the thing now where both of us are on the same page is we want the content to be good. So we're doing this
Absolutely.
together. It's almost like forming a painting. A painting. I don't know what a painting is. I think I meant to say a painting. But I want to address this first because it freaks me out a bit. And if I ask
Yep.
anything, and with us, we're friends in real life, so you just go no. What used to be our safe word? I can't remember. We used to have a safe word.
I don't remember, and I
We
almost think
had
the
one
safe
though.
word
We had one.
changed
We
every
had to
time.
use it a few times.
Oh, yes. Oh, I can't remember what it was.
Okay,
All
well,
right, it'll come to me.
I don't think we should share it. Okay, we'll just leave it
No,
because we might need it in the future.
true.
So we did a broadcast before, and this is when dogs were definitely in. People were wanting pets. Where now people are
Yes,
like, I don't. Well, why did I get a dog? So it's gone full spectrum since then,
right.
and I worry about the shelters with dogs because people are finicky. Not all. I don't want to paintbrush, but I've
Right,
noticed in our building there are a lot of dogs now, and there were no dogs,
right.
so it's changed. I'm worried in the future that if we have another lockdown, we'll have people buying pets again.
Probably.
I want people to be mindful and go, okay, because our life will never be the same. And can you
Right.
explain how that? It's scary, but hi, Kevin. And what I mean by the pandemic, I don't mean just you and I knowing each other. Okay.
Right. Well, whenever it's one thing to make a purchase or take a trip. It's another thing when you choose to be responsible for another
Mhm.
life. Whether you
Yes.
decide to have kids, whether you decide to have a pet, you're accepting a certain responsibility. So I would rather have somebody who gets in over their head,
Yes.
reach out and get help
Yeah.
than, you know, your pet suffer. In the same vein, the people who got a pet because it was fun and a diversion for a little bit,
Yes.
but now they're going to have to put in work and they're like, yeah, I don't want you anymore. Those are not my favorite people in the world. I don't
Yes.
I can't influence them. I can't
Mhm.
change them. The only thing I can hope to do is maybe mitigate the damage they're doing by supporting rescue groups. We're at overcapacity in dogs in our house. We've got 4 right now, and
Really?
our limit is
Never
2.
noticed that. Really? Hmm. Do you find it
Yep.
hard to stand sometimes from your desk? Because I
Um,
noticed that unless you have very furry legs. Yes.
it is.
Hi
So I've got two,
Ramsey, which is Fraser. Hi Fraser. Good to see you.
I've got two I've got 2 pet beds underneath I've got an L desk, so underneath
Yeah.
the side I've got 2 beds where pups sleep, but I have had to learn to twist my chair and look behind me before rolling
Hmm.
because
You've
there's
had
2
some
dogs
yelps.
that will sometimes get right and I've
Yeah.
bumped
Ooh.
them and startled them awake, and
You
so
haven't
I've
run
tried
over their
really
paw
hard
with
not to do
the
that.
wheel or anything. Not that
I've
you're
never
aware of.
caught a paw, but I've come close enough that it startled both of us. So that's something new I've had to learn is
Yeah.
being more careful as because I just you get off a call and it's like, all right, I want to jump up and run
But
to the bathroom.
how do you navigate a client when you've got dogs snoring and barking and wheezing? Like you've got every type of age, farting, who knows, right?
The
And
farting
it's
is the worst.
the other thing I've noticed too is that the level of broadcasting, even on major networks, when they call in, we're okay now with fading and pixelating and barely hearing people, and it's so changed. Like what we've got
Yes,
right here is very clear.
absolutely.
And I find it maddening when I watch these doctors, which I know have the means to buy the best stuff, to have fiber optics. They live in Toronto, and they look like they're on some laptop from 1987.
Yeah. Well, and a lot of people, unfortunately, they just don't know. Like it's never been a concern. It's like
Right.
when I was growing up, I never realized how clothing and fashion, not necessarily high end, but
Yeah.
how affected how people perceived you. To me, clothes were comfortable, they were durable. Fashion was just something that rich people did. It
Yes.
wasn't until later that I realized I could influence how people perceived me, that I started paying more attention. I'm still not very good at it, but at least I'm not as abysmal as I used to be.
So if you had to, because I've been saying this to people on Happs, if you could pinpoint something that has grown in you, like where you went, shit, I nailed that. I did really well this year on that. And then the second part of the
Yeah.
question is, what do I need to improve in 2022, and what is something I'm lacking in? And this has been a common thread question for the last week.
So I'd say absolutely figuring out how to manage eye contact with a
Okay.
camera and not a person. So one of the focuses that
That
I've
is
had to
hard.
have in life, because I'm not really good with personal situations, is learning to keep my focus in the triangle. Yep. Eyes, nose, trying to keep the focus in here
Yeah.
when I'm talking to people and not drift, not get distracted.
Hmm.
So that lesson makes me always want to look at whoever's speaking in video, and we
Yeah.
do it naturally. But their perception is looking at the camera. So I've really focused in on putting the pictures, the images right as close to the camera and maybe
Yeah.
a little higher than I can. And occasionally I'll look at the person, but using peripheral vision to watch them and
Hmm.
then just really focusing in on the camera lens so that my eyes might drift a little bit while
Yeah.
I'm doing stuff, but not, the extreme head turns that really indicate to people you stopped listening, even though you really haven't. That's been I'd say, number
I think
one.
that's the key to being a really good broadcaster is presenting that you care when you don't. I think that's what you're saying. It's really good. So listen, for those who are new and don't know you, this is Hans Ekman. He's a friend of mine. Do you want to explain to him how we know each other?
Sure. Well, yeah, go ahead. You can.
No, no, I'm asking you because I always find it interesting when you say it. I know, but I always love because it's always different with you every time you tell me. So, it,
Yeah. So I had the honor of joining Infotech Research Group as an IT advisor. So basically, we help people do IT better by guiding them and helping them learn how to solve common challenges. And I'm based out of Atlanta, but most of our offices are out of Toronto and London, Ontario, Canada.
right.
And my first visit to the office, I walk in and, almost meet this glowing, happy, wonderful person, Michael, in the office. And we just hit it off. Had
Yeah.
a, little introduction. Why was I up there? What was going on? And it actually became one of my favorite parts of my trips up was to ride the elevator with you, to get to hang out and chat and catch up
Yeah.
a little bit. It was always short, but it was just always a highlight of any trip I was taking.
So what's going on now is we've also developed a relationship where we actually do occasionally now
Yep.
Happs broadcast. But if you look in our back catalog, and I will in the next week or two, I'll post them again as I've been also trying to honor our dear friend Randy W. Horton. And I don't want to make it seem like a death, but in some ways it is a loss because he was such a powerful force on this network. We
Yes.
need people like my friend below us here, like Ari, and also Hans. This is Hans Ekman. If you watch the interview yesterday, you can tell they're different, but they're similar. Very high functioning, bright individuals who have vast amounts of information. And you're really good at slowing down now, by the way.
Thank
That's
you.
the biggest difference I noticed. It used to be, and you're like, whoa.
Well, I only had about, anywhere from 15 seconds to
Mm.
2 minutes to get my point across before you cut me off and changed the
That's true.
subject.
I have
So I had to
changed.
slam it in.
That's what it is. I think I'm mellowed. And the other thing is too, when you talk fast, my Commodore 64 brain couldn't do it. I couldn't compute fast enough. So, but we've learned to work with each other's flow.
Yes.
And I didn't get Ari upset, which I don't think I've ever not done in a broadcast. He was really good, and even I find with him, he's more refined.
Yes.
Yes.
Yep.
So we're like fine wine. We get better with time. I don't know.
Well, I think as people were getting adjusted to,
Yeah.
you know, a lot of our work used to be just phone calls, so we never saw anyone. The shift
Right.
to video was very hard for a lot of people and
Okay.
still is. And I think people have now, it's the anxiety of being on camera and talking to people in a video conference is that anxiety is gone. Maybe the comfort hasn't come yet, but it's become a lot more productive, and that's
You got to read this
translated into.
comment. Just read the comment. This is worth you reading it. Look what it says.
Hello, I've missed, and apologies to everyone who was out on the platform who joined or had great conversations before. With everything, work has been very good. Our
Yes.
company is booming and doing really well, but that's also brought a lot of work. And honestly, the screen fatigue got me.
Yes.
I had to start unplugging more. I just couldn't. I was spending, anywhere from 4 to 12 hours in front of the camera, and I was just burnt out. I couldn't get on. I just didn't have the energy to then get on and even
Yeah.
have a fun conversation. So my
Can,
apologies.
can I also maybe just add something you haven't thought of? Honestly, as a friend,
Yes,
we've been on
always.
we've been on this shitstorm now for over 2 years, and
Yes.
there is fatigue going on with everyone.
Oh yeah.
And I bet you if you looked at how crazy we were at the beginning and a little bit nervous, like as you can tell, we're not nervous at all now. We're just
No.
enjoying. We're in the gap. And when you've done something for a very long time and there's a bit of mastery in it, there is no worry. Like we have no script. I don't think we ever did. I think anytime we tried to have a script, it went sideways.
Exactly.
Can you explain that, the beauty of maybe being in the gap and living in the moment?
Well, for me, sometimes we jumped on because there was something we wanted to talk about. More often than not, it was something that we knew impacted other people and could help them. And by talking through it, we could share and maybe add a little insight, add a little clarity to make things easier for them.
Yeah.
One of the challenges, and we've always had this, is every conversation leads to so many different things that
Yes.
it's very easy to just hop around
Yeah.
on, oh, but what about this? What about this? Or occasionally, the random thought bubbles flying through the air happens to hit
I
you.
like
And it's
that.
like, all right, let's jump over to this completely different topic.
So you're talking like the OCD network. I love that the random. What'd you say? The random bubble. What?
So a friend of mine had a theory that, when you're thinking about something, but then you lose your thought.
Yes.
She actually believed that it got launched in a bubble
Mm.
that went and flying around until it hits somebody, and then it pops into their mind, and then they
Oh,
start thinking
I
about
like
it. So
that.
she
I like that.
makes as much sense as many other things I've heard.
Yes, like the flat earthers. Okay, no, we won't go there. Uh,
I get great entertainment out of them, and I appreciate
yes,
their commitment to avoiding logic.
I love it. I think sometimes you have to think outside the box. I think you could also call that a brain fart. Those bubbles, but to each his own.
Whoops.
I
And I'm
want
gonna
you to address something though, because you went through a lot of personal stuff
yes,
in the last year, and being on camera, being in front of people you don't know, us developing an audience on here now that which is left, which is
yep,
hilarious. Um, at its peak, where we were grooving pretty good there, and then they kind of pulled the
absolutely
plug. They kind of pulled the plug on us, which is
right.
fine. They have the right to do that. I also pushed the envelope too hard, which I don't think I would ever do now. So there's some personal graph. Did I say graph or growth? I meant growth.
I
And
heard growth.
okay, it sounded like graph to me, but the thing is with this, I want you, because you had a rough time at the beginning, and for those who are new broadcasters, I just kind of want you to share your experience and how far you've come. Like, you don't seem to me like the guy I talked to some almost 2 years ago. I don't know when our
Yeah,
first, well, it would have been 300 days ago, probably.
yeah. Well, and so part of my journey is we're we're always learning to adapt to new situations and try and get the best outcome from
Yeah.
interactions. for me, a big struggle through life has been, and I openly say this, I
Right.
suffer from some mild personality disorders, a little bit of OCD, a little bit of ADD. Had it existed as I was a kid, I probably would have been diagnosed somewhere on the, autism scale.
Yeah.
So for me, reading emotions, reading social situations is extremely difficult.
Yeah.
And also, I'm very shy. I'm an introvert
Yeah.
until I get comfortable. So for me, I had developed all of these scripts for how to handle situations, how to
Mm,
do things. And I've been working remote for over 5, 6 years now, primarily. So I had the phone etiquette. I had the screen sharing, but it was always on the phone. So nobody cared what you were looking at, what you were doing.
right.
As we started having more of these video conference meetings before the lockdown, I had to learn a new way of working with people because they were all in the same room. And I was almost like this ghost floating in the corner that they had forgotten about. Then, when everyone shifted online, it became this whole new thing for everybody. So I had to figure out, what are my new scripts? How do I do things? What are the things I'm doing that are distracting? And at first, you're focusing on all these different things you're trying to watch
Right.
out for, and it's just overwhelming. And then you start getting a few of them, you get better, and then you can put those aside. And then once they kind of run automatic in the background, then you can focus more on, making sure that maybe your body language is coming across on camera. So you can't see my arms moving around, but if my body moves, I'm moving, so you interpret
Yeah.
it that way. So trying to throw things in that help me communicate better and focus more on the conversation and avoid the distractions like looking off to the side because I'm actually looking up something about our conversation, but it looks like I've stopped paying attention. So that's been a lot of effort to get to that point, but I do feel a lot more comfortable and relaxed than I used to be.
And as an observer, it is a cool transformation.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's very cool. And I even noticed it in Ari. Like there is
Yes,
something, it's not a huge shift, but it's enough that you notice it, right? But there is
absolutely.
fatigue going on. So I wonder if that varnish is gone. That layer maybe is gone. Do you know what I mean? That
Yep.
protection layer. I think you can get to a point where it's like, really, if you like me or don't like me, I really don't care that much.
Right. Well, there's two areas that have really been hard for people to adjust to. One is we lost the informal communication. So now it takes a lot more effort and focus. We have to be a lot more deliberate in how we're working together.
You're
And
right.
a lot of people aren't used to that. The second is there's just a lot of things we used to get away with or thought we were getting away with that are now magnified in this kind of hyper focus.
Yeah.
So if I'm sitting in a meeting room and I'm writing and taking notes, people are going to assume I'm paying attention, even if I'm, playing hangman with myself and always losing.
Yes.
But when you're doing other work on a conversation, it's clear. Like
Yeah.
even if you're just kind of doing something to
Can
to,
you
to
read the
keep
comment
yourself awake.
there? Because I think it fits perfectly in what you're saying there.
Yes. Yeah, the people's nerves are exposed. I apologize. I had the
Yeah, it's
comments are
okay.
slightly hidden, so I don't see them coming in.
Yeah. So, Blazon, if you can, just expand on that. But I really believe now that people have been forever changed, and we've now let go of the expectations of it maybe being like it was before. And I think we're embracing the world will not be the same. And for you,
Yeah.
you know, what parts have been healthy in this transition called, I guess, COVID, and what
Yep.
parts are not healthy and that you feel like you could fix, you hope to fix.
Yeah. I think I have two unfair advantages going into all of this.
Sure, tell
One
us.
is I was far better prepared than most. Like I work to make sure that if bad things happen,
Mm-hmm.
I at least have a plan. I may have a way of coping with them because I don't want to worry about them. I carry an air pump and an emergency kit in my car because if something happens, I don't want to be stranded. Now I
Yes.
don't have to worry about driving because unless it's something really bad that I
Yeah.
can't control, I'm prepared for it.
So
So
maybe
with working,
explain to them that
yep,
one of your passions, because we just did what I think is a beautiful transition, somewhat effortlessly. You'd swear we orchestrated it, but just now we're going into the prepper portion
yep,
of the broadcast, and we'll probably end it after. We'll let people ask questions if it starts to gather. The other thing I've noticed doing this now for 300 days, it takes 45 minutes for a broadcast to start to groove. Isn't that wild? I've figured it out. Around 40 to 45 minutes, a broadcast will start to get momentum. And I can't tell you how many times I've tried to leave a room at an hour and it's
uh,
buzzing.
right, yeah, yeah, I
Prepper.
think so, and that's the balance between when it's buzzing with the audience versus really tuned with the conversation.
Yes.
I think a lot of times, the first couple minutes you're kind of getting in the groove, getting things started, but it can pick up pretty fast.
Where are we right now if you were to self-assess in this transition period? I call it prepper. It's the next chapter here, folks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, I think you and I have worked well enough that it's very natural and we jump right into it. So,
Yes.
shifting over to that next prepping, it has a bad name, it has a bad connotation. What we're really talking about is if you have a work bag, a backpack, a snow kit, a hurricane, you're a prepper. You have food in your pantry. The question is, can we be a little bit more deliberate and understand what types of situations we want to respond to? I'll give you a real simple example. I never ever know when my wife is going to have a really bad day, going to be really sad or upset about something, or just you know really happy and wanting to celebrate. So I have a secret box of little tiny gifts that I've pre-bought. So if I ever need to go, I could walk down to the office, grab a little gift, and give her a surprise to turn around a bad day or congratulate her on a good day.
You could
I'm
write a
prepped.
book on this, by the way. You could write a book. Save your
It's
marriage by having
uh,
31 gifts in case of emergency where you put your foot in your mouth one too many times. Is that what you're saying?
about
That's brilliant.
I'm out. Yes, I am writing. I have it outlined. I have not. I will be writing that book. Absolutely. But
Yes.
that's just an example of prepping. Something that might happen. What are you going to do? Like I mentioned, the car thing. That's another example. So for me, I realized that I was worrying about too many things. I started thinking about the things that were worrying me, and if I could do a little bit to
Yes.
prepare for them, I would be less stressed out day to day and I could focus on other things to worry. So when COVID hit, I know and knew what pandemics might look like from mild to severe, and you never know until you get into it. So I started reviewing and saying, okay, if there's a lockdown, is there anything I need? And so we were pretty well set. I thought we were pretty well set. So I went out and got cake, ice cream, pies, and we turned the first 2 weeks into a calorie ridden party. I
Yes.
made sure that there was plenty of beer because I knew that beer and wine would run out, so I restocked that. I did not realize we were out of olive oil. That was a really bad mistake, but I
Always
was able to get
forgiven.
some more 4 months later.
Yes.
But we went into it more like you're in a snow jam or you're trapped for a fun week, and it really made the transition to it easier, whereas I know a lot of people, it was such an abrupt change that it was far more stressful.
Hmm. Do you, okay, I'm going to ask you some basic questions that I think people are thinking. Do you have a generator? Number one. Number
I
two,
do not.
do you have in stockpile fuel or fuel like things like propane? And do you have dry goods that last beyond a couple of years? If we
Yeah.
can adjust. And I'm going to be. You're going to talk by yourself for about 2 minutes, and I know you exact. Okay, you know what I'm doing. Okay.
Yep. So part of it is think about the things you use day to day, week to week, and if you couldn't get them for 2 weeks, decide what time period. Do I want to have enough stuff to get me by for 3 days? Is it a week? Is it 3 weeks? 3 months is generally kind of where most people would want to stop in terms of their preparation. Because if you're locked down and can't restock in 3 months, things are really bad. And you're either going to get help from the outside or you're going to have to move to an area that's not impacted. So for me, we have we have access to drinking water. I'm not really worried about that, but I have enough if we had a 48-hour or several day shortage of safe water, we're okay. For food, mainly it's just making sure the pantry's stocked. I do have some more, the emergency buckets, more portable food that lasts longer. Have never had to delve into any of those. In terms of fuel, we see a lot of fuel interruptions, and we're going to see a lot this fall as well. So I always keep like our grill, our deck heater, they're all propane. And I have had two propane tanks go out and be completely out. So I always make sure that I have at least one spare for every active tank I'm using. And then I have one spare tank just in case I was and the other tank wasn't full or I made a mistake. And that's, just for me, having a tank sitting on the side is pretty safe. Same thing with gasoline. I have a couple 5-gallon gas tanks that I fill up. We'll burn those through the car every couple months and I'll refill them. I make sure and use ethanol free gas because the ethanol gas goes bad quickly and will clog a lot of tools, especially two-stage motors, but it can also be, it's not great for your car, especially if it's been sitting. So I've got, the gas in case. Actually, the primary use for gas and the spare gas has been when my wife forgets to refill her car, doesn't have time in the morning, so she goes and grabs one of the gas cans to fill her car and then says, "Here, go refill it again." We haven't, our power is very stable in our area, so
Yes.
that hasn't been a big concern. So I don't have a generator. I've been looking at them and dreaming about them for years, and I haven't decided, do I buy a gas generator that can keep things like the refrigerator going long enough? What
Yeah.
I really want to get is one of the natural gas whole home outside generators, so it
Okay.
runs off gas and can power your whole home. But that's going to be like a probably an $8,000 to $10,000 investment, and
Right.
I can't make that investment right now.
How about solar panels?
Atlanta, surprisingly, I right now they're not at the break even point. The cost of
Okay.
solar panels and installation is getting better and
Mm.
closer, or more specifically, not the panels, but how you store the power.
Yes.
Because you have to store the power during the day, and then, how are you going to use it during the night or other times? So it's getting closer that our sunlight might pay that off, but it hasn't yet. Same thing with wind power. We
Hey,
have nice
Tony.
breezes,
Yeah.
but not enough to actually affect the cost. So those are potential, but not worth
Yes.
investing in yet.
So and I want to end this soon because I don't want to go too far because we're getting into that sweet spot. Um, I'm hoping in the future, everyone, that we can have the business shows that we used to have before, and we all know that can only be 4 people now. I would like to address some of the security issues that are in the world right now, where there's hacking of huge corporations. I've read that there are so many people who, I shouldn't say people. Uh, I I don't want to I don't want to terrify people and the masses, but there are a lot of really despicable individuals out there that want your personal information for the wrong reason. And
Yes.
today, someone called and there was this elaborate thing, and there's been suspicious behavior on your card, and we need your information. And you know, as soon as you hear a call center with 100 people in it that speak, you know, a different language, you can tell it's a secondary. There's probably a good reason for you to worry. They're pretending to be something that they're not,
Yes.
and I can guarantee you they're nabbing seniors because they're terrified.
Yes. And a lot of people are also falling victim because they're, at a close inspection, it seems real enough.
Right.
And you start reacting and not thinking. And I'll say we have family members who are not stupid at all, who are
Yes.
very well aware of the risk, who have fallen for like the pop up, call this 800 number, your
Yes.
computer is under attack,
Yes.
this is Microsoft monitoring, give us access to your computer. Luckily, in
Yes.
both of those cases, all they did was install adware. They didn't install anything malicious or ransomware, but it could have been a lot worse. And
Hmm.
my first question afterwards was, how could you possibly fall for this? You knew this, like nothing rang true. And they're like, well,
Yes.
the shock of knowing that we might be under attack, I started reacting and troubleshooting, and they said to call. I'm like, have you ever in your life had like Microsoft wanting to spend money on a phone center to call you? Like they don't
Right.
want to support at all.
No. And if you have an individual that's unwilling to show their face, so what's happened in some business calls is individuals will approach someone knowing that they're fairly new and say, "Listen, I am the head of this corporation, and I would love to come on and tell you a little bit about our products and services." And they basically, it's a whole bunch of BS.
Yes.
So you have to be incredibly careful of who you let in your inner sanctum or your temple, whatever you want to call it. I'm using temple only because of our reference,
Yeah.
but they've had individuals walk into buildings, steal laptops. I heard of one, they stole laptops, got the information, and brought the laptops back. Left them. So we don't want the laptops. And then basically did, if you would like to have your sensitive, information not all over the web, this is what we would like from you in a very timely manner. And that is an old, but if it doesn't seem real, don't be reactive. Like he said,
Right.
be careful because they hope that you'll get emotional. What happens when you get emotional? You lose all forms of logic. It goes right out the
Right.
window.
Well, there's two easy rules. Number one at work, when in doubt, forward it to your help desk.
Hi, Chris.
They'll check. Um, Personally, if you're worried about it, delete it, don't worry about it. Or the best thing is go directly to the company that is the subject of it. So if someone's contacting you from the bank, don't respond, don't do anything with the message, call your bank, chat with your bank, log in, go to your bank. Don't click their link, but log in and see if there's anything suspicious.
Yeah.
Um, and then, really, for me, this is where kind of that prepping mentality comes in.
Mm-hmm.
If you take steps ahead of time, there's far less chance bad things are going to impact you. For
Yeah.
example, if you freeze your credit, it is almost impossible for anybody to open or
Yeah.
hack your credit information. It's a
Including you.
little annoying if you do need to open something, but it works really well.
Yes.
And then for every single login, you know, if you can use one of the password vaults, generate custom passwords for everything, but mainly do two-step authentication.
Mm-hmm.
Whatever it is, because when your password is going to be compromised, the more you
Guarantee it.
reuse passwords, the more you're
Oh yeah.
compromising every account. But
Yeah.
two-step at least makes it very difficult,
Yeah.
almost impossible to break in. It's annoying, but it's going to take most of your worry away.
Right. Be careful of surveys asking you what your dog's name was. What is your mother's maiden name? So these are the same questions they ask you when you're filling out right? And they
Right,
know that. They know specifically what kind of questions to ask. So you'll be doing some fun
right.
random survey, which is not random. They want your information at all
Yeah,
costs.
yeah.
And then in
It's gonna
turn, the very worst case scenario is they steal your pictures, they hack into your account. But a lot of times they just want your buying. They want to figure out what you're buying is, what you're buying, where you're going.
right.
And Google does that. Explain that if you can.
So that so the the good bad news is most professional crime or state sponsored hacking is going to be against companies,
Yes.
because instead of having, like, okay, if I hack Michael, I get Michael's information.
Hmm.
That's a lot of work for one person's information.
Yes.
If
And
I
for a
hack
benefit of 14 cents, where they would rather
exactly
go for 14 million. I see what you're saying.
if I hack his insurance company, I get all the Michaels that do business with
Mm-hmm.
the insurance company, all of their information, all of their history at once. I can sell that to other people who are going to try and use it for different crime or scams or other techniques. I can use it myself. I can do things like the Sony hack and try and get them to remove movies or spoilers. There's a the selling the data is valuable. Or what just happened with Amazon is, if I'm a seller with Amazon, they have some great analytical reports. And this is true not just for Amazon, but they're in the news. This is every single company: Google, Facebook, Instagram. You can actually look at the analytics to see what's driving traffic, what people like, so that you can do more business. That's
Yes.
helpful. They have found that companies are using that data, setting up lots of different companies or aggregating the company data
Yes.
to try and figure out who's buying what. Then they're selling that information to people who are selling in those categories so they can maximize their sales. Basically, they're gaming the system. So it's not that, is it fraud? It's really in a gray area, because what they're doing is they're figuring out what products are selling so people can then sell copies of
Mm-hmm.
fakes or imitations of them or knockoffs, but we're also buying those knockoffs because they're cheaper.
Well, and here's the other thing we're not discussing, which is a very valid point, is what might take you 5 years to get clarity on through when you do analytics, you've got it. You don't have to
Yes.
go through the pain and suffering of figuring out what your customers like. The numbers don't lie. They also tell you what don't work. It's even in dating.
Yes. Yeah.
And
Well,
that's
and
why people go into these sites and spend thousands of dollars trying to find the perfect mate. Not
right.
necessarily going to happen, but that was kind of random, wasn't it? Yeah.
No, not at all. Well, and
Okay.
so the data and the analytics give you information and insight. You really need to understand before you draw conclusions from it. And this is, for a personal example, my primary place to post professional information is LinkedIn. It is probably the best professional networking information, professional profile place, at least right now. The articles I try and write because I want to help people.
Yes.
If I write about bad managers, bad companies,
Yes.
basically a vent like article, I get more shares and more likes.
Mm,
And one of the decisions I had to make early on was, do I chase the likes because that indicates what people want to read, or do I publish something that is core and authentic to my brand? I decided I'm not going to chase the likes and try and be an influencer by just parroting what people wanted to complain about.
yeah. That's one word, though. What is that? What do you think the word is? Integrity. You have integrity.
Yeah,
You actually care what you're putting out there, and you want to give people value where something that's useful, not you just chasing fame.
right.
Well done.
I, I'm doing it for mutual value. It's fine. I have nothing against people who want to do it only for their own value and their own, you
Yes.
know, gain. That's fine, because if it's working, somebody's getting enough value to support it. But for me, I have to be careful that if I'm doing something, what is core, what is important, and really stay focused on that, and then not try and chase the
Hmm.
likes as my indicator of value or feedback. To me, I look more for the people that contact me or comment afterwards that they were able to apply that and it had a positive impact on their life. If I can get even a couple of those, it was worth my time, and I really enjoy that.
Before we leave, and I want to leave soon because I like to
Yes.
leave it around an hour. If you could, just leave it on a fun note and explain some of the things behind you. It is
Oh,
not. It is not a fake background. It's
nope.
actually real. I bet you there are many people that weren't looking at you during the broadcast. Were looking at the zombie that says brains. And if you could just kind of go through what's going on in the
Yeah.
background there.
Uh, my background, so part of it was I failed putting up anyway. I wanted to have something that was just a very easy backdrop for professional calls.
Yes.
And so as I built it out, it's always evolving. So it's kind of turned into a Where's Waldo game. I move things around so that people who are in meetings have new things to look for.
Yes.
And I try and make it interesting, but it's really, I've had to change because a lot of what I've got up there just doesn't, you just can't see it. So the top shelf is fossils and minerals
Oh,
because that's always
is
been
that
an
is that
interest.
what those are? Okay,
Yep.
I now see
So
that.
amethyst, a fish. I can't remember the name of the ones that are black and silver. Um,
The
you know,
purple one, I think it's purple.
that's
It,
amethyst.
yeah, that is very spiritual.
Yes, always
Yes,
been a favorite of mine. I love amethyst
yes,
geodes,
it's healing,
and that
right?
yes, that was a gift from my wife who knew how much I loved them. The
Yeah,
poster was given to me by somebody when I worked for a bank that said brains because one of the presentations I do is how the zombie apocalypse can help you survive your IT projects. And I've
yes,
always had this kind of zombie prepping fun.
yes,
And so that I kept just as something entertaining. The lucky cat, I'll let you Google that. I think its name is Miko, but I can't
yes.
quite remember. It's from a Japanese
It's
legend, but
maddening.
it is a lucky cat, not
Yeah,
lucky for the cat itself, but lucky for it wards away evil. And I think so it's basically waving away evil while I'm meeting with my clients.
yes,
The second shelf is baseball and baseball paraphernalia. My grandfather worked for the Minnesota Twins. I've been a big Braves fan, so those are tickets to the World Series.
yes.
I've got signed artifacts by Kirby Puckett, who is always one of my heroes. Some work stuff and other stuff from China and Hong Kong, where I've spent time. Library, and then actually I'll part with the photographs are all ones I took. The top
Which ones
polar
are
bears.
those? If you
Hmm?
can just kind of point to them. So those ones, like the blue skies and stuff. Oh wow, I don't think I've seen that far over
Yep.
before. So that's all your personal art. The other
Yep.
thing is too,
So
we always shamelessly plug ourselves here. And what I mean by that is if someone wanted to have your services, because you are a professional speaker
yep.
and you have done many a conference worldwide, all over the globe, if you could basically give them, a rundown of what your specialties are.
Yep. So everything you can find out my current presentations and watch any of the old ones at ekmanguides.com. I usually focus on IT, especially program management, agile DevOps, product management, uh, around those topics, and then also a lot on leadership and personal development or professional development, building your personal brand all the way to becoming an empowered leader. And I usually try and find a fun spin. For example, Harry Potter and the presentation of leadership secrets is a fun one. I'm actually developing a workshop that I'll be presenting at conferences next year. It'll be an all day workshop using Harry Potter to build out your own personal leadership development plan and assess your strengths so you can become the hero of your story.
That's amazing. Absolutely amazing. I wanted to make sure we got that in there just in case someone wanted
Thank you.
to speak. Before we go, it's something that has not changed for me in Canada for 10 months. We have barren shelves. And you were talking today
Yeah.
about Black Friday being Black Friday today. There really isn't as many deals as there was before because people aren't, they don't have access to things like they did before. So,
So the short version is the disruption is largely because of not having employees at key parts.
hmm
So there's not enough raw materials making it to factories.
ah,
In the
I
factories,
didn't
there's
know
too
that.
many people out. Yep. There's too many people out and not working to fulfill at the same volume. Even if they do, there's not enough warehouse workers to process. There's not enough truckers to deliver.
So it's
So
affecting everything.
yes,
Everything is being screwed up.
and it keeps piling up, and
And
one
why?
outage. Well, it's a supply chain. So
Okay.
if I don't have raw materials, I can't make anything, which means everything down the road is impacted. And
hmm
then I keep impacting down the road, and it just keeps getting worse and worse.
Yeah.
Here's
But
why.
but lumber's
Go ahead.
becoming gold. But lumber's becoming gold because of that.
Yes.
Is that what you're saying? By the
Um,
shortages?
say that again. I'm missing the.
Okay, so here's the thing. You and I both looked at Black Friday today and went, "This is a joke. There's
Yeah.
nothing real." Like usually, you're like, "Oh, I wish I could afford this, and I wish I could afford that, and I wish I could."
Right.
This year, it's kind of like these are really not deals.
Most of the deals are actually old models and clearance stuff that they're passing off on sale. They're
Right.
clearing out old inventory that they didn't sell, especially in computers. Be careful about that. There are a lot of old, outdated computers being sold for great prices, but they're 2, 3, 4 years old and inadequate for what you would want to do. You're not going to get a lot of life out of them. So they're selling off all the stuff they still have in inventory because they don't have new inventory.
Are they selling stuff at a loss, you think, just to get rid of it?
Yeah.
Yeah. That's what
Absolutely.
it.
That's what Amazon Day is. Most of Amazon Day, when they have all the is super clearances of stuff that didn't sell in the warehouses,
Yeah.
and they're just clearing it out.
Could it also be returns?
Some of it, but their returns are always listed as returns or used,
Right.
and they're trying to recycle more of their return stuff. Unfortunately, a lot of it just ends up being trashed.
I heard that or sold to people who buy truckloads of it.
Yep. Yep.
Yeah, so it's almost like the picker show. I've seen that where
Yep.
they bought lots, and you can do that. At least you used to be able to. You would buy this unknown lot for $400, and you
Yep.
got what you got. And they may give you a description of computer parts, cell
Yep.
phones, but you end up with 9,000 cases that don't fit anything.
Military surplus gear is a lot like that. Countries
hmm
sell off entire containers, people buy them and then part them out and sell them. So,
hmm
you know, they're getting the stuff for almost free. They can
Yeah,
sell it for super cheap and still make a great money. And it's so much cheaper than we could buy new. It's a great deal all around.
yeah. See, in my fantasy land in my mind, Amazon is selling box lots of thousands of bottles of wine that no one wants, and I get it for $300. That is not going to happen in my lifetime. Thank you so much for being here today, sir. Do you
It
have
was
any
great to
parting
see you.
words? Do you have any parting
Um,
words?
one last thing to kind of close that out is everyone should basically look at what they use in a week or two
hmm
and make sure you've got that supply or slowly build up your supply. And here's why. Everyone who gets a cold, the flu, any type of thing is probably going to have to quarantine from work until they get a COVID test back.
Oh
Everyone
no.
they came in contact with is going to have to quarantine. Even if it isn't COVID, it's going to put a really big damper on people who are working.
hmm
And over the winter, if we have a bigger flu season or COVID or pneumonia or whatever it is, you're going to see a lot more people out of work than have to be out of work because they
Yes.
can't work. So I think we're gonna see some bigger disruptions throughout the winter before things really start looking good in the spring.
One last thing, which I find kind of funny, is there's been restaurants where half the staff have left, and
Yep.
they've had to close. They've had to close because they were so mistreated, and they're like, no more. So what do you think that is? That shift is that the pandemic? Is that the awakening? What is that?
We I think we can only handle so much stress in our lives,
Mm-hmm.
and a lot of people aren't willing to put up with it anymore, and we haven't found the next group of workers who are willing to do it.
So
You
basically, you're
see it
saying
at all
people.
levels.
So you're. Oh, okay. So you're saying
There's a
people
lot of
are at.
executives. Think about our peers and people we worked with
Yes.
who have quit the industry and are selling real estate now. They just got burnt out and they're like, you know what? I
Yeah.
don't want to do this anymore. So it's happening at all levels,
Oh,
but
they're
we're
taking a
seeing it
break.
a lot. Yeah,
Is that what you're saying? They're taking a break for a year or so, just to, yeah. I think you're going to see more of that.
absolutely.
Like, well, think of how incredibly challenging it has been for yourself
Yes.
to manage your life and your personal life and juggling, and I think that is so common now. Am I also allowed to, if when I talk to some of my business friends, can I also mention your name that you might be open to, you know, different broadcasts?
Yep. And I appreciate the Elliot's joke that once you sit down, COVID doesn't spread. That is very funny. And I'm in Georgia, next to Florida. We've been open a long time, and I'm amazed every time I go out.
Thank you, folks. Have a great day. Thank you. We'll see you in the near
Cheers. Take
future.
care.